Thank you very much for joining us on the Modern Job Search Checklist. Once again, it's Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. We join you at this time every Friday. And of course, that's 12 p.m. Central if you're in the Midwest like me. My name is Mark Anthony Dyson. I'm your host. The voice of jobseekers.com is where I reside. And hopefully, you are catching it on a Friday where you can relax a little bit and rest because a lot of people are taking that long weekend at this particular time. As usual, we stream to LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So hopefully you'll join us in one of those locations. It's usually my page on Facebook, and we do have a YouTube page. It's the Modern Job Search Checklist YouTube page. Subscribe there. There's a few people who have, Damian, so we're happy about that. Damian Burkle, jobsearching.org, professionals in transition. The organization he's had since 1992, founded it, helped more than 10,000 people with jobs since that particular time, and also a two-time author. How are you today, sir?
I am good. Thank you. Glad the 4th of July is here, and happy 4th of July to you and Mary and the family, and to everyone in our audience too. We'll finally have a
Yes.
normal. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes. No, I was going to say for you and Donna as well. I don't know if you had to take out the canoe like we've had, but yeah, it's been raining straight for the last 5-6 days, I believe it's been. And I think that today's the first dry day we actually have, and it's a little cool, and that's fine with me because when it goes up to the 90s, then I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to be bothered, even if it's a holiday weekend or not. It's not going to seem that way because we're just coming out of the pandemic. We're even glad to be able to go around other people, being that just about everybody in the household is vaccinated and all that. So we'll see how that goes. So for you and me, we've had a bunch of guests recently, and we have a bunch more coming up. But we thought we'd take this weekend for ourselves to have more of a me and you chat and exchange ideas of what's going on. So really, I've been perusing everywhere. Um, between the social networks and having conversations offline and things like that. There are some things that maybe you've seen that I've seen that we can maybe comment on and kind of give people overall the good, the bad, and the what's happening now in job search. Again, you can catch the replay on all the platforms we're streaming to as well. Be sure you let us know what's happening in your lives. Already, we got Dixie, who seems to follow both shows. She says happy 4th, and happy 4th to you, Dixie. Hopefully you enjoyed this because this will be kind of a potpourri show. Nothing with the specific themes, but we're going to tackle a few topics. One thing that I think we should talk about, and I don't know if you noticed too, there was someone I was talking on Twitter. Her name is Dorothy Dalton,
Mhm.
and she had made mention that there has been an uptick in career coaches and career advisors and career consults on LinkedIn, particularly. She noted one statistic she had. She says it's 840,000 career consultants, career coaches, etc. And she knows that a lot of it has come from when people become unemployed and they find a job, they end up being a career coach, which, it is very interesting. And I don't think there's nothing wrong with it if you're offering great advice. But I noticed that particularly in this case, there's, the job advice isn't all necessarily complete in there. I mean, it's not that everybody's been wrong or people are wrong when they are wrong. There's some cases where it's not right for that person. You know what I mean? Career advice could be, often career advice is given in broad strokes, and they start the sentence with, "Well, you got to do," and it's like, well, no, first, nobody has to do anything when it comes to career coaching advice. Here, And my other show, we give suggestions, and it's not 100% proof that it's going to work, because
Mhm.
there are situations that that person doesn't go into detail that we tend to give here and get in the chat. They'll tell us what's going on, and then their challenges and so forth. But really, when it comes down to getting that career advice, we try to give a very practical point of view. And between you and I, we have a lot of experience, especially you, since you have 3 times the experience that I do. But I guess the discussion to kind of throw out there, one of the advice that I still see and I still hear is I won't even say it's advice, but it's just a broad stroke of saying that only this piece of advice will work for everybody in
Yep.
this particular situation. And I think that's true. And I'll give an example. One of the things we often say, and a lot of us often say, the objective statement, which is true, is outdated. When, out there in the audience, somebody's employer has hired somebody with an objective statement. So I think it's kind of just being able to contextualize the advice, and for people who are taking the advice to be able to fit it where it would fit in for them.
Mhm.
Now, if we go a little bit, if I can go a little bit deeper than that as far as the objective statement, that if somebody who is a secretary who's worked for churches all of our life, a lot of the employers may not even care if there's an objective statement, especially if that person got a referral. So we can't say that you're going to be blocked because you have an objective statement. But if you're looking to get hired by an employer with an objective statement, and if you're putting it through the ATS, the black hole, online, whatever, or you're even trying to approach someone with it, they may look at it outdated. And I
Mhm.
think, again, every piece of advice has context and should make sense to the other person. Um, after that little rant I just gave, do you have any thoughts about that or anything else that maybe fall in?
I do, and thank you, Mark, as always, for doing the lion's share. Our viewers probably don't realize the amount of work that goes into just getting on the air and then maintaining us on the air. And I always like to recognize Mark whenever I get a chance. But
Thank you,
coming
sir.
back to your point, you're welcome. Um, Here's what I've learned. It seems to me that the younger the career counselor, not in age, but in experience, the more dogmatic they are. You must do this, you must do that, and are eager to take someone else's work, either the person who's written the resume or maybe another person that wrote their resume, and just rip it to shreds rather than look at it as a tool, a body of work that they can then sculpt to meet the needs of the person that they're working with, and more importantly, the needs of their target companies.
Mhm.
And then the kind of what also goes along with that is the more seasoned a career counselor is, the more information they're willing to give you, the more flexible they are in terms of taking a person right where they are and moving them forward. And like you said, Mark, it's a series of suggestions. Coming back to what you were saying about objective, what I always remind people is that when there is a position open, the company has a hole. They have an immediate need to fill in into their roster a person that meets the qualifications as they're listed in the position. Those things that are requirements are the keywords, those magic keywords for that particular position. What that has to do with an objective is, when I was hiring people, I really didn't care what your objective was. What I was interested in was, are you the answer to my needs? Can you jump in and fill this position? Will you get along with those in our culture? And now, if I could, I'd like to take it up even a higher level.
Sure.
Richard Nelson Bowles, God rest his soul, uh,
Hmm.
the author of What Color is Your Parachute? He was a minister before he wrote What Color is Your Parachute? And he actually wrote it in the late 60s because he was asked to give a seminar to, believe it or not, clergy in transition, those that
Hmm.
wanted to move. Well, long and short of it is, I had the opportunity to spend time with him 2 times in California. Here's my point. But what struck me was that, yes, he had a great program to follow, but he also accepted people where they were and counseled them gently in terms of what the next steps were. That's number one. Number two, you never heard that him taking down other career counselors. Uh,
Hmm.
he just led. He did his thing. He shared as much information as he could his entire life, and
Hmm.
stands as a beacon for those of us who are in the career counseling business. For him, it wasn't about the money. And sadly, what I'm seeing, especially with this influx of career counselors, are a lot of people where it's money first, not mission. And
Yep.
if people are looking for career counselors, I say find 3 or 4, talk to them, and then talk to people that they work with to get a feel for what they're like. And what I think you're going to find, and this is my last thing, is
Hmm.
really good career counselors have a lot of similarities. And once you begin to see strong similarities in terms of their approach, in terms of their desire to serve, in terms of their willingness to share information with you for free as a
Hmm.
starter, then you know that you're going down the right path, as opposed to career counselors out there who are saying that I am the sun and the moon, and if you pay
Hmm.
me X amount of dollars, all of your unemployment miseries are going to go away. So that's a long answer to a very short question.
Yeah, and that's good. And I like what Dixie says, and I guess she's, uh, the way that she would screen is what classifies you as a coach: experience, education, or certification. I think really fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of our colleagues would say, well, you should have a certification. You should go with that because, and then the person has some assurance that they've taken the training and so forth. I am abnormally born into the career space, being that I didn't have a significant or coaching experience. I had some time where I've gotten advice and I've followed other coaches. I had even had to, when I worked with the federal government back 10 years ago, I still had to go through a week of very intensive training and get feedback on it. So I feel like, yeah, I need that. What's interesting about me as well is that I do have a training certification in personal training. So in that sense, it is still coaching, but I carried a lot of that because I understand the principles of coaching through that experience. And then at this particular point, people don't ask me, well, you've written a few hundred articles and you really, especially when other career coaches and institutions use your written advice, there's not really much to be tested on that particular sense. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. I'm just saying that everybody has a different experience, reason why they might be a qualified coach, and they have certain education. I have a master's in education and training as well. So that a lot of those principles are based on the International Coaching Federation. Damian has a coaching certification and went through coaching programs in the past, even while he was in business, three. So therefore, I think everybody has something to qualify. You can compare and contrast information, but here's what I found and what I've experienced, and that is coaches that don't have the continuing education and don't know the current trends and don't know what's going on and giving you advice like it's from 1990. I think you need to be very concerned with that particular advice, because it does. And if it's especially if it's a rigid one way, they didn't hear what you were asking advice for. I think that may make the difference in all the world. Otherwise, yeah, anybody can put themselves in a coaching position and be successful, especially if their education continues on. They hone and grow their skills and really understand the job search as it is now today. Could give you really great coaching and despite not having a coaching association that they follow or theories that they follow. Does that make sense, Damien?
Yeah, it does. You know, if you were to say to me, where is the magic? The magic is in the listening.
Mm-hmm.
And the true test of a career counselor is, are they deeply listening to you? Are they serving as a facilitator of the
Mm-hmm.
process? Not taking that process away from you, but helping you, giving you the overview, showing them what needs to be done, and then letting them do it, and then helping them every step of the way. Because a good career counselor facilitates, teaches, and allows the person to take control of their professional life and their career. And I, unfortunately, have run into my fair share of career counselors who say it's my way or the highway. You follow my book, or you're just going to be out there floundering.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my point being is that a good career counselor, more than anything, gets a feel for the person first and has several conversations and will tell you right off the bat after a couple conversations whether or not they're right or wrong for you. And if they are wrong for you, not only will they tell you, but they'll usually refer you to two or three other people, because if it's right and you click, and most of the time it does. But when it's wrong, you're really doing that person a favor by recognizing the fact that you really can't help them at this point, and
Mm-hmm.
either refer them to somebody else or let them continue to work until they're at a point where they can really use a career counselor. Plus, there are tons of information out there. But another thing that a good career counselor does is, and Mark, I mean, I've been out of work 3 times. There
Mm-hmm.
would be no professionals in transition if there was no such thing as an unemployment support group in North Carolina, and I didn't start it
Mm-hmm.
until I was back at work. But my point is that it is so easily you're so easily overwhelmed when you're job searching. And what
Mm-hmm.
I tell folks is, uh, a job search and a resume is a theory. You are saying that this is how I am going to present myself to the market. These are my strong suits. These are my accomplishments. These are my keywords. And OPS, if you present it to the market and you've done all your work, and after 2 or 3 months it's not working, then maybe it makes sense to take a look at the theory of you. But a career counselor guides you and helps you tune out the 95% of the noise that's out there, and basically says, find one good methodology that works and follow that methodology, not have what happened to me, where I worked very, very hard with a candidate. And she called me 3 months later and she said, I'm still out of work. Can I come in and show you my resume? And I said, sure. And sure enough, she presented it, and it was a Frankenstein resume.
Mm, mhm,
And she had taken what I had written, and then in a different type, in a different font, she put in some stuff. And then a little bit later, because she changed her mind, she stitched in a little bit more. And so by the time it was done, if I were an employer, I wouldn't even looked at it. So this was a person who was following a prescribed plan, lost faith, and then got buffeted around by the internet experts and ended up hurting herself really badly, because we had to start, well, not start all over again, but quite a bit of a backstep to get her going and in the right direction. And once we got that, and she was straight and flying right, she got a job. And my question was,
mhm.
well, why would you veer off the way that you did? And she said, well, my husband's brother's first cousin's third member of the family is a career
Right.
counselor. He said I should do this. So, anyways, that's my feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can relate to some of that. Somebody, you last year, you were very kind enough to join the job lab that I do with the First and Christian Church of Chicago, and also people on my mailing list. And we had a nice group last year, and you were on several sessions. And basically, you just watch and listen. I said, you're not going to just sit and watch and listen. You're going to get in and lend your expertise. And I was quite comfortable with that. And you became a regular part of the group. And all you want to do was support. You didn't come and try to swoop down on people and take them to your group and what have you. And that's a mark of a great mentor, by the way, just to let you guys know. But the other half, the other part of the story is that somebody in that group eventually got a job, but throughout the year, and it was just recently, I think March, or I think late February or March, they got a job. I won't say who it is because I won't put her business out there. But she also went to Hannah Morgan's group that meets on Monday online. So I was going like, well, since you made the jump from me to Hannah, I think you got the best end of the deal. Quite frankly, I mean, it's great that you got two for one. You can, and then you went to another group of somebody who I admire and is one of my colleagues, and I would bet on any second of the day. By all means, please do go to different coaches, especially if you're not trying to pay. You want to learn things for yourself. You want to grasp it. I think that's a great way to get a couple of different perspectives, make it a hybrid of a learning palette for yourself, and then be able to apply that to your job search, and for it to work shows it says a lot. But all
Mhm.
in all, she came back and she told me what happened, and she said this is where she was very happy with the advice that we gave. But all in all, I think that one thing, working with a single coach is one of the reasons why I do very little one-on-one coaching these days, because there are a lot of ways to go ahead and uh, parse the Red Sea, so to speak. It's the job search is like the Red Sea, and you need some people to help make it easier for you. And I think you find whoever you can. But all in all, I think that some of the bad advice comes from a bad place where people are, especially either sometimes not even just the lack of knowledge, but sometimes it's the way that they frame advice,
Mhm.
and the way that person's accepted without being discerning. And it kind of works on both ends. And I think that's what makes bad advice. And I think this is just some that who have gotten on LinkedIn and they're trying to get business. So they're giving the most sensational thing that they possibly can give, and give it like they're an authority, when authority is something that you and I have taken years to build and continue to build.
Mhm.
We don't take it for granted at all either. And we're also open to other ways to make sense for people, because I think coaches,
Mhm.
they want the business and say, I'm the one that can do it. And yes, they have all the magic wand, but really, when you look behind the curtain, sometimes they're not a really good listener, as you even talked about. Now even go as far as saying that really a good coach would not just listen to what's being said, but they're looking for what's not being said as well. And I
Yes.
think that's where the true magic is that you're able to discern, you'll be even just take a little bit of what somebody says and be able to expand on it, or take the whole bunch of what somebody says and being able to hear what really is the issue with that person. So it really, it is becomes a puzzle for the most part for a lot of those coaches who are still trying to gain traction in their business and trying to get when really people should be pursuing credibility when they first get online, and also learn from other people who are around, because it does help to have also a community that also supports your advice and said, if you got it from that person, you're right on. That's an awesome way to feel when you get that. But when you don't, then you are betting on yourself, which is not a bad thing. But hopefully, if you hear something that's not right and you've said it, that you'll be able to take the hit and says, I may need to advise a little bit differently and better next time.
Mhm. I can't tell you the number of heartbroken people that I have seen come to professionals in transition after
Hmm.
spending $500, $1,000 on very poor resumes, and you have to tiptoe because there's a feeling of shame attached
Hmm.
to getting fleeced, if you will. Uh,
Right.
and again, they have fallen for the fast sell, the being able to delegate the pain of finding a job to somebody else, and then are not pleased with the results. And a really good career counselor, um, if you ask him or her a question online or whatever, that they'll give you a straight answer and point you to resources in most cases. A newer career counselor or someone who's honestly money driven, not like you, Mark, mission driven,
Hmm.
uh, is completely different. And the approach from a money driven type of business is, they're going to get the business any way they can from anybody that they can. Mission driven, it's perfectly okay to make an income, but you're in an elite community when you are an experienced and recognized career counselor, and you've worked very hard to get there. And once you're in that company of others, of course you want to work with them, send people
Hmm.
their way, and give people the information that they need first. And then if they want to work with you, then that's another thing altogether. And basically, I would say uh, buyer beware is the first thing that I would say. The
Hmm.
next thing that I would ask is, uh, how long have you been in business? What is your candidate load? That'll throw them for a loop. Candidate
Yeah.
load is the number of people that you carry, meaning you're working with at the same time. Another question you want to ask is, what is your field? What specialty? Is it marketing? Is it information technology? And listen to that answer very carefully. And then I'd ask, what is the lowest level person that you've ever helped and the highest level person you've ever helped, just to get a feel for their breadth and their range and their ability. And then I would say something like, this sounds very interesting to me. And the final question that I have is, would you please provide me with four names of your clients that were very satisfied with you, and four names of clients that, for whatever reason, uh, didn't work out? And if that counselor is worth their salt in gold, or whatever the saying is, they will not be afraid to give you that information so that you can weigh your options as you go through deciding who you're going to work with, so that you go into the situation eyes open and that you don't pay for a lot of things you don't have to. And just one final thought: the driving force behind me starting Professionals in Transition, who, by the way, knew less about running a nonprofit than the wall behind me,
Hmm.
did it because there was a need. It didn't exist. I kept looking for an Al Anon for the unemployed, which is for the families of the alcoholic. There was no such thing. I needed information. And when I paid for outplacement before, $1,500, guess
Hmm.
what? I found out that virtually all of the information that they were using was available at the library. And
Hmm.
it was at that point where I said, for as long as I'm around, I'm going to provide information, referral, hope, networking connections. And then a career counselor can take it from there up a level if that's what the person wants. But the person who has no money will at least be able to walk away with information that I think is uniform in terms of approach and helpful.
Yep, yep. And rarely I ever talk about what other career coaches do. Again, I'm not just saying that a career coach could possibly be wrong because I don't understand all the contexts and conversations and things that
Mhm.
people have beforehand and the reason why behind the advice they give. But very often, some of the advice they take is such a broad stroke that really is not just that anybody would give it, that they take an answer and make it so authoritative that the person has no wiggle room to do anything else, which really a lot of times the advice you get is a measuring and a hybrid of not just listening to that you read things along the way, that you've seen along the way. This person made it crystallize and make sense for you and your situation. And again, if somebody who is a really good career advisor, counselor, coach, whatever you want to call it. It's not just the things that are being said that came out of your mouth, but there were some questions that they may have had that they didn't hear something that didn't fit or make sense to them. They're going to ask further questions and they're going to inquire a little bit further. They're going to dig a little bit deeper without necessarily charging you a dime for that, by the
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
But those are the good ones. And I sometimes when people feel insulted, they say, "Well, you're picking my brain. I should be charging you," and people charge me for that. And I'm going like, but it was such a simple question. If you had asked one or two other things, you would get the answer that you want. And so I like what Ruth says. She says, spot on. Those of us who truly care are well trained and forthright. Ask us anything we want to help. And you not only just being able to ask us anything, but that we're willing to hear something. And if we don't understand something, we're willing to ask the further questions because we may have gotten it wrong because maybe we heard something else the first time. I think that's a real somebody who really is a coach, who understands. And it definitely, the library is definitely a useful resource, but the internet too.
Oh,
you
absolutely.
can't find you could find quite a few things on the internet, and a lot of people have found their jobs just by from the information they get on LinkedIn, or they get some from different articles that have been read, and they gather information. They're able to move forward because that gives them what they need, or at least they've been able to try that advice and it works. And it's great to be able to get that feedback when people say, I tried your advice and it worked. That's the best feeling. It's better than pay to me.
Yeah.
I know there are people who disagree with that, but it is better than pay. When somebody validates, they say, yeah, you gave advice, it worked for them. And of course, you put that in your back pocket and you'll use it as something and say, hey, this worked for this particular point. Uh, so I want to move on a little bit from this point, but I guess all in all is if this advice that you question about, go to somebody you trust and start to ask them questions. Try to look at both ends of what might be a little contradictory and what might be the truth, and kind of measure the two and see how it may fit for you. Because sometimes, sometimes good advice comes from uh, places that are not as credible, but that doesn't always work. That somebody can pick the good out of advice, but also include some bad contextual advice, which I've seen before as well. So we'll just move along.
Could
Let's
I say
talk.
one?
Go ahead. Go ahead. You had
Um,
another.
yeah, Ruth Sternberg talked about uh, access to information. I said library. That could be internet. Access to information is one thing, but how
Yeah.
to discern that information
Uh-huh.
and how to evaluate it, it's a different thing altogether. And I just want to call her out and thank her for that comment because she's absolutely right. That there's just a ton of confused people out there that are overwhelmed by the internet, and having somebody who knows the field to talk to and to discern,
Discern.
excuse me, and easy for me to say, right? And
Right.
and guide them is what it's all about. And it's good to know that there's people like Ruth in the world out there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. And I'll even say too is that one of the things that when you're listening to somebody is experienced as Damien, is they're going to ask more than likely the right question. Damien, him and his group have more than 10,000 people find jobs. That should tell you everything is no. It's also a nationally recognized nonprofit organization to help people with employment. That's another notch. When you hear things like that, you can go back on the internet and see his Wall Street Journal interviews and CNN and some of the other places where he's been, where he was sought out as the go-to person for many years. So when you have credentials like that, and plus the books, you are going to get that kind of reliable, as opposed to somebody who just came on the scene the past 2 or 3 years. Maybe you have written 50 or 70 resumes, but you don't have his experience. And years do count at times, especially when you're out front and you're actively helping people in front of other people and they validated your help, their help. That is a big deal. So definitely, I would heed to what Damien said as far as asking a few people who has worked real well and some people who haven't worked real well. And my money's on that. There's a lot of people who have said that they are career coaches. They don't talk about the people who that they've it didn't work out for them. And there could be a lot of reasons why things just don't work out. I mean, people don't always take the advice as seriously, or go as deep, or try to make more sense of it for themselves. That they're looking for something that's ready to fit and clip on and to work right away. And career advice is one of those things, just like advice uh, about fitness. Fitness, you can hear great coaches give some good advice, but it may not be good for you contextually. They,
Mhm.
if somebody says the way you get a great chest is to bench press, but if you have a missing arm, it wouldn't be something that was fit for you. So, yeah, you got to be careful in that. Again, I now echo Damien in saying that, yeah, the Ask Around community may leaders know who good coaches are, absolutely. And that helps. The references on LinkedIn definitely help if there are some. The ones on the website, I'm not as trusting as other people are. I like the LinkedIn because the LinkedIn is connected to a real account of somebody who took the time to do it. Website, Um, it depends. I'll just leave it kind of like that, unless you had anything else to add to that, Damien.
No, I absolutely agree. Um,
Okay. All right.
Consider who your source is.
Good. Yeah. Consider your sources. The next thing is that a lot of people don't consider temp work and contract work as an option. They kind of miss on that particular point. And quite frankly, as soon as you're unemployed uh, unexpectedly, um, two things you should be, I think there are two, three things that you should be doing. One is shoring up what, understanding what you're going to get from the company that is letting you go or laid you off. Understand what their benefits are, because some companies during the pandemic, and I known this to happen, they give a severance package. And sometimes during the pandemic, people gave a severance package out of goodwill and community, in the sense that they just want that person to do well, and they just didn't work out for all their efforts. There's also those who give a severance package because that person might have seen something, and that you might tell or sue, and you might come back to sue them. Therefore, they're going to give you something to maybe, along with the NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, to give you something that will, that's going to, keep you quiet. But I think the other thing that you'll have to do is not only understand those benefits, take care of your mental health, but also sign up for temp or contract work to keep money coming in, despite whether you have a year's worth of savings or not. I mean, yeah, okay, take the vacation. Yeah, take the time off, take the time away, but also get something where there's might be some good, or at least to be able to keep some money coming into your pocket and keep a somewhat of a, you know, the income coming in. But the interesting thing is that in February and March, there was an increase in temp work. But yet in May, for whatever reason, there was also a decrease in temp work, which I thought was interesting because this is when all the people started resigning. Now, I don't know if they resigned and then went to work temporary or contract. They may have, and there's some people who planned their exit because they had time over the last year to do so. But all in all, in your opinion, Damien, do you agree with that temp work and contract work are definitely the go-to strategies amongst the other things you need to kind of keep yourself afloat until you get the next permanent position, if that is indeed your gig?
I'm going to answer it. It depends. But first thing
Yeah.
I want to roll back. If you get a severance agreement, make sure that you read it carefully and have someone else read it. You might even feel better. Like for me, I had a lawyer read it, and he said, "Yep, that's
Yeah,
a
a lawyer is what I would recommend for sure, to have somebody else read that. Sometimes, because sometimes it may be several pages long, and that's what they do. It's worth the money to have somebody read, and it may just take them an hour. And yeah, they're going to charge you $300 or $400, but that also saves you and your career to a great degree, and possibly your reputation. So I think it's a lot is more worth than your years of salary.
Absolutely. And this is an entirely different show, so I'll just be very top line.
Hmm.
Ruth suggests to ask for outplacement. I absolutely agree. Another thing is, and again, we can talk about this at another time, but having been severanced, there are, you can negotiate. The bottom line is this, and we'll talk about it some other time. You can negotiate your severance package sometimes. But the old
Hmm.
Damianism that I always say is no ASCII, no Getty.
Yeah.
You just have to know what to ask for. And again, that's a topic for another time. Coming back to your question, temp and contract work, it depends on the person. In many cases, it depends on their field and their age. For instance, some of my IT folks that are legacy, meaning their IT skills are old, all of a sudden find themselves back at the banks that let them
Hmm.
go because the bank found out, oh no, we don't have anybody that can do this, that, or the other thing. And so they do go back doing temp or contract work, and money comes
Hmm.
in. That's the good news. The bad news is if you're going to do that, um, just be prepared for a longer job search, because if you're working all day and you're job searching all night, you're going to absolutely burn out. And there are things that you can do to help automate your job search. Again, a separate topic that will allow you to keep your momentum going. The biggest issue that I see is I'll see pit members. I know one right now who gets so involved clearly in a contract that's going to end that 6 months from now he's going to come back to me and he's going to say help, help, help. And basically I'm going to say, you and I talked about this, you dropped the ball, you let all of your steam, your momentum go, and I understand why, but now we got to start all over again. Bottom
Hmm.
line, um, there is nothing wrong with it. And human resource managers love it. A
Hmm.
VP of human resources said to me not that long ago, we love temp to perm because it's like, I hated this when she said, it's like rent a person. We bring a person in, we have them for
Yeah.
90 days. If we don't
Yeah.
like them, we switch them out. And we keep doing that until we find someone that we love and we hire them and pay them a commission. They do all the work to find the right people. We benefit from the person. And if we don't like them, we replace them. So all factors to keep in mind as you weigh these things over. However, if you have a very, very short severance, uh, then yeah, I mean, I would immediately think about short-term work, whether it's contract or temp to perm, because I am seeing members of professionals in transition doing temp to perm who are start out doing temporary work and they get offered a permanent position. So bottom line is it is a very viable way to find a job, but be careful to keep all the other doors and windows open that you've worked so hard to get to while you're doing this work so that you don't have to start all over if for whatever reason it doesn't work out.
Yeah, sometimes these things could be a little bit a little complicated because temp to perm also for many companies means that they have an agreement to where they have to buy that person's contract,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes they may not see that it's worth it, even though that person worked out. But a lot of times, I've seen where people have forged a relationship with so many people within the company that it becomes obvious this person has already fit into the structure of the company and paying it be a small price of value. So I would say when you to add on to all of this is if you do work temp or contract, your leverage is the relationships and how well you work with other people, because if you're able to especially anticipate needs before it comes up as a need, then you become not only invaluable, but it shows that you care a lot more about the company than some of the people that actually work there to collect a check. And, when you have hundreds in the company, you often get that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, you want to, and I would say your key relationships, if you could build the people you directly work with, your boss, and maybe even your boss's boss or the people that you report to. When you report beyond the person, or you're able to build a relationship and rapport, at least at minimum, with the person that that is making the real decisions behind whether you can stay or go, it really directly and affects positively that the decision's gonna be a no brainer for them because they know you instead of having gone through some other people. So I definitely and that goes for temp or contract in that particular sense. And I think for a lot of people, there are things that you should consider if you're kind of weighing both. One is the cost of insurance is high and is going to be higher, and to get some help. I don't think that the way that employment is sustaining insurance now is going to stay the same, but I definitely is better than paying out of pocket for sure, because those get expensive, and that's one of the things that you can also negotiate with the company that laid you off. And sometimes even fired, that maybe instead of them paying you a check, so to speak, or sums, can that be turned into insurance, or plus, or if it's either or, the insurance may not be a bad thing because getting sick uh, and going to the doctor just to the ER alone is very expensive and probably be 25% of many people's check that you earn for a week or a month, or even more, depending upon what you're doing. So, all that to say is that it is a great option, and don't be just because there's a lot of people who've probably signed up for it right now because of their status doesn't mean that you shouldn't, and keep that as an option and keep that as a door open. Did you want to add anything to that, Damien?
Yeah, real quick, and that is, Mark, depending on the temp company, an
Mm-hmm.
increasing trend that I see is that you are actually an employee of the temp company. And they
Yes.
do give you, which is, I think, what you were saying, healthcare benefits. And another area where I would encourage our viewers to network is you definitely want to network with the company. I'm thinking of one person in particular who we bought out her contract at Sara Lee. It was the best thing we ever did. But she
Mm-hmm.
also had done strong networking and had built and forged a relationship with the person that did the placing from the company, and
Mm-hmm.
also the head of the company. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and she was seen as a rising star, for lack of a better term. And
Mm-hmm.
this was her third position because as one position would come down, they already had her planned for another position. So she just continued to work doing uh, outstanding production in different work environments and different companies,
Mm-hmm.
and she received top dollar when we bought her contract out, and here's the critical thing, and received medical benefits the entire time. And that is the mark of a very astute person, uh, utilizing their ability to network inside and outside to forge strong relationships. And OPS, uh, she got a call from the president of the Temp agency because another company was looking for someone with her talents on a higher level. And there's
Mm-hmm.
no way in the world that she would have ever gotten a call like that if she hadn't earlier on established such a strong relationship with everyone in that company's chain of command. So it's kind of like the gift that keeps on giving.
Keeps on giving. Absolutely. And that is just a great point. I wonder how much has actually been done today that where people, I mean, there are different temp situations, and it's probably good. It, not only it's okay to sign up for a bunch of them, but I think the more you know about a temp agency and what they offer, uh, like jobs. The more you know about a job, the better you can position yourself. The more you know about a temp agency, the more you can understand what they're going to offer in those cases where it can they're offering a temp to hire. And I've seen sometimes in the smaller temp agencies offer things that are not true. It said, well, yeah, it is temp to hire, but depends if the company's willing to pay that fee uh, for you and whether it's going to be worth it for them or not. So, there's contingency everywhere. I would say, as you said last time, buyer beware in that particular sense. We're coming to the last few minutes. And do you have anything going on special coming up here that people should be watching for?
I have the seminars that I mentioned that are coming up later in the summer, um,
Hmm.
and several articles that I'm going to be uh, quoted in, and I will
Hmm.
bounce it back to you and wish you and everyone here, like we started a happy Fourth of July, and also to thank everybody because, and this is what I say, professionals in transition, you are my greatest teachers. I learn more from Mark and from your comments and from the other questions we get after the segment uh, that I would never think to ask myself. And
Hmm.
getting the support from Mark and all the others in our community is so important to me. And I'm so grateful. And again, Mark, thank you.
No, well, thank you, Damian. Always great to be with you and be around you whenever possible. And we'll probably have to start the text club back again. But in any case, yeah, I have a few things coming up too. And of course, the other show is Job Seeker Nation. Join us on 1 p.m. Eastern. And we also stream to LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And should you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Nothing to say, but just have a careful holiday and be careful and enjoy it and do what you feel like is going to be the better. The holidays sometimes can bring some opportunities. This one may be a little bit different than we've ever seen. Right after a pandemic, everybody's willing to get outside. I don't know anybody who's going to really be in the office until maybe Tuesday, especially after today at 5 o'clock. But the rest of you, you guys have a great holiday. Enjoy it. Be back next week, same time, same place. And check out our YouTube channel. You can go to the Modern Job Search Checklist channel. We haven't started a Facebook group yet. I don't know if we're gonna, but you can find the replays there. You can also find it on an article on my timeline where you can find all the shows. There are no notes; it's just the shows lined up, and you can have at it and watch us ad nauseum over the weekend, even if you want. In the meantime, it is Friday near 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next week.